Hello everyone, sorry for my room being a mess, but right now we are going to be recording my dad's voice. Now, this video specifically is going to be the complete rundown of how I got these tracks the way they are, because right now it's done. I just have to add my dad's voice, and you're going to see a time lapse that throughout the few weeks I was very confused, and my dad jumped in and helped me to figure this out, and he helped me a lot with making this song because I was pretty much at a standstill and I was stuck. So throughout this video you're going to see a time lapse of maybe 3 to 5 minutes long, so that you'll see where I started and where I'm at right now, as you're not going to see right now, but it's the way I am right now. And then after, I am going to explain how I did everything and how I got the ideas from my dad and all that. And that is going to be this video, and then in the next video it's going to be this right now, which is recording my dad's voice. And I'm very excited to jump into this and get this capstone knocked out, because my dad's voice is 59 years old right now, and he recorded this when he was probably in his 20s probably, so his voice is very different from then till now. So I'm pretty curious of how it's going to sound, because I've heard him sing with him playing guitar and whatnot. He says that his voice has gotten deeper over the years, and yes, that is scientifically true, but he actually can still hit a lot of high notes for his age, and I'm like, wow. But I digress. Let's jump right into this video and let me show you the process and how me and my dad figured this song out. Hope you all enjoy it. Hello everyone. So as you can see from my screen right now is that we have finished this project, as in just audio wise, and I have to record my dad's voice. And I had a lot of trouble with doing everything with this. It was very hard to decipher the track to the original track, and overall just trying to make it sound similar. And I winded up not doing it similar, with an exception of few things, because the bass, the lead keys, the cymbals, snare, tom, crash are pretty much the same. There's loops that happen here, which is main loops, which is the main beat over the entire song. And then there's like this bridge type section that's sort of like it has a syncopated type groove to it. So I used loops through this entire thing. These loops are actually built into Pro Tools using Expand 2, which is pretty cool. So one thing on the list that I had a lot of trouble with was deciphering things that I can figure out how to place, like the lead keys, the bass, and everything. Why I had so much trouble is that if you look down here to this track here, this is the track that has the original audio in it. So whenever I got to this track and I was trying to listen to it, it just kept slowing down every time. Right around here, it kept slowing down every time. And I remember what I learned in sound production all like in 2018. And in one of those classes, the sound production class, the Sound for Digital Video book had something similar to what happened here for this track. And I can't remember specifically what it's called. I'll place it like on the side somewhere on the video. And basically, this track, when it got converted to digital, something happened and it started slowing down every time, very, very slowly. Because once I get to, if I solo this, put the click track on, we have it, because the original track is 120, but we did it at 117 because it's just a little tolerable. If we go to one of the tracks that start on beat, listen to this.
That you wanted. Now when it comes to love, I know quite a bit. I don't even run, I just wait for that kiss. Let me be true to you, and let me be real. I want it to be with you.
See what's happening? The track slows down, and there's like, it's horrible because in the beginning it's pretty fine. So let me show you that. So it's fine in the beginning, and sort of towards around here, that's when you slowly hear it starting just being horrible. So that was one of the main things that I had so much trouble with. And of course, my dad, throughout this entire process, helped me create this track and putting his input in, and both of us combining our heads to make this sound decent. So we kept referencing the track, and we slowed it down to 117 because he sang it with the paper in front of him. It was easier to follow along with 117 than 120, even though it's about a 3 tempo type difference. It's very significant with the MIDI and how the MIDI performs in the tempo, because all the MIDIs are set to tick based, and once you adjust the tempo, everything MIDI adjusts to the timeline of the tempo. So we decided to do 117 because it was much more easier to just overall manage and keep up with everything. So throughout this entire process, we actually did it in 100 beats per minute with tempo, because when you do 100, this is not going to sync up well. But when you do 100 tempo, 100 beats per minute, you get to slow everything down and you get to figure out what's in the song that you can sort of distinguish. You can sort of figure out and how you can nitpick the track and see how you can get everything, and you can get everything in and get the specifics. So we slowed it down to 100 beats per minute, and we started creating the bass first. I was thinking doing the bass first, and that's what we did. We got to like probably right here or something like that until we decided to do the lead keys, because then we can just follow the lead keys. So my dad got to play the piano. So we slowed it to 100 beats, and my dad played the chords while using the tick track. We did not use the OG track right here because, as you heard, it falls out of beat and tempo and whatnot. And I did try elastic audio with this, and it still didn't help. It was that bad. And I just stopped using this track, and I only referenced it to check to see how everything is lining up, per se, not lining up with the track, but how I can maybe add something, or maybe I can add a sound that's in here that's not in this. So it was basically a reference track. My idea and my plan was to follow this entire track and then just sync everything up with this track here. That didn't go as planned because, of course, it fell out of tempo. So it was the bass first, but then my dad decided to do and told me to do the lead keys. And he played the lead keys throughout this because I cannot play a lick of piano. And this is his song. He knows the chords by heart, quite literally. So he played the chords, and we had to fool around with a lot of this. And this part is a doozy when it comes to the this part when I talk about later. I turn on my ceiling fan light so you could probably see me better. But we started with the lead keys. So with the tempo on, we can start here, and you'll hear that it's slow, but it's easier to record things if you just listen. So it's very easy to play along, and that's what we did. We also did it for the bass as well. And the bass was quite a doozy because my dad showed me how to do the bass, and I did the bass, and I had to figure it out because it changed. It kept changing, and I was like, man, this is going to be difficult because I cannot play piano. But he explained that if you open this up in the MIDI editor window, that this is the chords here, and this is the bass. So look at this chord. Now look at this, and look at this. So these match up with these. But as you can see, it's the bass and the lead chords are the same. It's just off one note, and it's a bass. It's an octave lower. So when he explained that, it was pretty easy to do, but still I decided just to play it on the piano and just ba-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-bum, and I just kept doing it, even though he told me that the lead keys follow the bass at the same time. So we got this done here, and it got really hard when it got down to over here. The bass was a little bit finicky too, but this over here was very difficult because it goes to the syncopated point, which is this part. You can hear it's syncopated and offbeat. That's what makes it even catchier, because syncopation attracts the ears, and it's really, really good. So it's syncopated, and the transition here from this point, we have a fill in here, and we couldn't figure out how to fill this in, and the bass part as well. Let's solo both of these. See, we even tried to do something like I couldn't do it, but we literally tried to make it somehow we can transition it, and my dad figured out that he just replaced, where is it? He grabbed this section over here and placed it over here, and we had to drag out this note here because it was longer, or we had to drag it out just a little bit more. We got rid of the thing we did, and it matched up perfectly, but the problem was there was a space here, and this fell into place with this, with the syncopated part here. So what I had to do was I had to shift everything over here. Shift everything over. And then when it got to the end here, I had to shift everything over again because the loop fell ahead, but it was actually the lead keys, because you can see with the lines here, that the keys were instead of the keys being like this or like this, it was like off a little. So I selected the bass and everything, shifted it over, and it lined up perfectly. So it was basically, I think it was my fault, because I made it and I was trying to follow this track, and then I soon realized that this track here wasn't going to be any help with syncing everything up together with this track, with the OG track here, and then whatever I can add, like a bass or whatever with this. It was somewhat like this. So me and my dad figured that out, and that was really the most extended part here, this part right here. Everything else fell in because it was pretty much repeat, except for over here. This is towards the end of the song, as you can see, and I'll explain these two parts later. But as you can see, if you listen to it, that part is towards the end, and that's a little, this is actually the ending right here. And why it looks so awkward with this being over here and this ending here is that when my dad sings, we're going to, because at the very end, he sings out, "Let it be me," and he does it whatever. And of course, that was horrible, but he holds me for a little bit. And then I can select naturally how it feels to make it fade out. Because I don't want to end it somewhat like that. I want to fade it out because that's how his song fades. As you can see here, it fades out. And we can figure when he sings, "Let it be me, blah, blah, blah," I'll find a natural point to start fading it. And I'll go into this area in the volume and I'll fade it slowly out for both of these. Okay, moving on to the instruments. So we can mute these. The instruments wasn't really that big of a deal because I was pretty much syncing up this part here with this, but then I had to ignore this track here and look at the lyrics and figure out where the little transitions happen. So see, this is the main beat here. It sounds slow, but it sounds pretty darn good. So honestly, let's not mute this. We'll start right here, and it's gonna be 100 beats per minute, just for you to figure out for you to hear what me and my dad heard trying to figure this stuff out. So this is what it sounds like. Right, and then when it gets over here, so whenever this part happens, and usually when it resets to a different verse, so when it shows this part and when it resets to a different verse, that's when these snare happens. So that's a different verse. This is a different chorus with that chord. And then this one was a little bit weird because this is a snare, toms, and cymbal. So when it gets to the bridge part, or just the way, or just this part that is syncopated, it feels like it's speeding up, but it's not. The syncopation, I believe, is what's making it feel like it's being fast, but it's not. So I'll talk about these in a little bit, but we're focusing on the instruments first. So when I was figuring this out, if you listen to the original track here, I'll probably put it here. Whoop, see how far behind it is?
Then the feelings began. Then the feelings began.
So I was going to do that, but the problem was that we were, as I said, with the gap that happened here and just the brief pause, that's what we were dealing with. I was trying to use this to fill out that pause, and it did, but you still felt that hesitation and pause. And that's when these two come in, and I'll talk about that later. I winded up doing this. So it feels like it's jazz in a way, because like everything here sounds jazzy, but it's more of a upbeat when it gets to 117. It'll feel a little faster. So I did the snare here, and I was just trying to fill in that gap that happened, but I thought about recreating it, and I didn't mention that to my dad. I was thinking about making it sound like the track, but I didn't, because when you sped it up to 117, it actually really sounded pretty cool. And it sounded like it was going into like this jazz type vibe with this bridge thing, so it was pretty cool. Over here is the same exact deal, but it's a little faster because the transition here is a little awkward because it's automatically stopping with the syncopation and going back to regular. See how it's a little awkward, but it still works well. And then over here is the last fill, because too much of this will be excessive. It already happens over here quite a bit, and I don't think over here would be necessary. And I told my dad that, I'm like, do you want me to add more of those fills? He's like, no, because it's already being repeated multiple times. So right here is the last time this fill happens, where when it goes down, doing that note when it's going down with that chord. So that's pretty much it for that. Before I started going to this main loop track, is that my overall point, and I told you in the beginning in part 1, is that I want to make this as close as to original as possible. And that ended up not being the case, because it's more of trying to make it sound more modern. And I was very limited to the certain plugins I can use, because I do not have any money to get plugins that have like this real drum sound and all that. And I just basically got dealt cards, and I'm using the cards that I have now, which is this. And everything is MIDI, and when the final project happens, it is going to sound very cheap with MIDI, but I hope that the sound of the song doesn't overcome the lyrics, because the lyrics are very, very touching. It tells a story, and it's like a sequence of a story. And I'll explain it in the next video when I record my dad. I just hope that people won't focus on just the sound quality and not me using real drums or real bass and whatnot. With that being said, we are moving on to the main loop. The main loop is one of the loops that is in Expand 2 under loops, and we did jazz. There's bossa, mambo, modern, pop ballad, and samba. We used pop ballad number 65 plus. It sounds like this. It's slow because it's at 100, but this is what it sounds like. And I wasn't the one that came up with loops. My dad did. He said, is it possible for you to actually maybe look at a loop or something, and maybe you can find something or like a samba type vibe that will match this song correctly? I said, there are loops in Expand 2. He's like, okay, go ahead and let's listen to what is there. And we looked through this loops area, and we were like, oh wow, there's tons of loops. So we were looking like, this stuff isn't going to work. Urban, tech house, soundtrack, nothing's going to work. I said, is it reggae? No, it's not reggae. And then my dad was like, ooh, look, jazz, bossa, mambo, modern, and ballad, samba. And we went through all of them, and we decided going on this one. And with these loops, you can actually pick. See, you can pick certain tones. And we picked sort of what a natural sound is. This sounds more natural than this. Here. This one doesn't sound as distorted as the other predecessor does. So we picked that one, and I just recorded it a little bit, and I expanded it all the way over until when it gets to this, because I started playing this and it just didn't sound right to me. And I was like, man, that it just doesn't sound like it's supposed to match this syncopated thing. So we listed a few things here, and we were going through. I actually have a sticky note right here of what we listed, and I went through all of them, and we picked jazz modern, jazz pop ballad, and jazz samba. And we picked them, and that's really the only things that were there really for the bridge. And we picked jazz samba for the bridge type area. And there is samba pop, which is, this one is for the main loop. Modern, yeah, there's multiple here. I even tried Latin pop and it didn't sound correct to me. I was like, nah, I didn't like that. So I picked jazz pop ballad for the main. And I said, Dad, what do you think will be good with the bridge? He's like, you pick. I know you'll decide what is best for this. So go ahead and pick. And I picked jazz samba, 109 plus. So if we undo this, open up the MIDI editor, this is what it sounds like. See how the little hi-hat or like the snare tap has something of like a, it's like on an offbeat in a way. And the staccato thing that's happening here happens on an offbeat as well. So the main thing happens right here, or right here, if I should point out right here, if I can get the cursor here. So it happens right here, and you can see that it starts on the beat, but it sort of has a vibe of an offbeat to it. Just how it starts on the beat, but the actual keys that he used and the stuttering is more offbeat to anything. So this matched perfectly with this. And let me show you it. And when I'm done explaining everything here, I'm going to actually talk about a few things that I didn't like about Pro Tools and everything else about Pro Tools that I really didn't like that I came across with. So let's start right here. And you're going to hear how everything sounds. We're going to listen to everything, but I'm going to speed it up to 117 towards the end, and we're going to listen through this entire thing. But this is what it sounds like with the syncopated part here, or like the staccato, I guess you can call it, with the bridge part here. See how it somewhat goes well, and it actually really goes well in my opinion. So that's why we picked this part here. Now, I had a lot of difficulty with the space that happened here. Remember previously I talked about that little gap that happened? Me and my dad were trying to figure out how can we make this part here match up with this, because we were starting right here with this part here, and it completely threw it off. And that was one of the main things I was dealing with. You don't even need the metronome. If we start right here, or even on these parts here, instead of this very bold white line that starts on beat, instead of these other ones that happen on the beat inside the 4/4 beat, if you just start here, it throws the loop off completely. Just listen to it. But then when you start on the solid white line, it's the most weirdest and somewhat stupidest thing I've ever saw. And I don't know if that is something that can be fixed. In my knowledge, I have no idea if it can, but I would really appreciate if you guys can figure something out in the comments below, or somehow figure this out and let me know, because this is really, really annoying. When I was trying to let me just start right here, and it's completely off, and I was like, man, this is really ridiculous. So I had to start over here or start here to get to a certain point or whatever. It was really annoying. But we figured out that this part here was starting here, and it was throwing everything off up to this point right here, I think. And it was throwing everything off, and my dad, I couldn't figure this out for the life of me. And my dad said, maybe you can start this a little bit more away over here and have it mute here, and then when this part comes in, completely bring it straight up to make it sound like it's coming in on the exact beat it's supposed to be. I'm like, that actually is a pretty cool idea. So we went to this tab here, the track view selector, and we went to audio volume. As you can see, it's in yellow, which means it's been in use. So you can see here that it's has volume here, even though nothing's playing here. You can see it's muted here, but then when this starts right here and where this ends, it shoots right up. And we didn't have to do anything with volume over here because it ends perfectly with the chord here. So we didn't have to do anything. We just had to start something right here that makes it in sync. So if we go over here and it starts, let's switch this to beats and bars, 52-100. So this one starts here, and then this one stops at 53-1-4 ticks. So beat 53, or so this starts at bar 53, beat 1, 480 ticks. And I did some math, and we also adjusted, just kept moving, like we kept grabbing this slider here when we go into clips, or notes, because I kept feeling annoyed going back to the MIDI editor every time. So we just kept grabbing this and kept moving it ever so slightly. And we found the perfect spot here. And we also did some math just to make sure that it was correct. And it was. And we figured it out and we were like, yes. And as you can see, we didn't do any, I don't think we did fade here. Yeah, we didn't. We didn't do any fades here because we ended it at the crash symbol and where the bass repeats and where this beginning chord happens. Both of these happen. And it's not the snare and tom and cymbal covers up the abrupt stop for both of these and the beginning of this. So it sort of fills it out. And there's so much happening with the bass and the keys and with this that you barely notice it. So I think I pretty much covered everything. I've been talking for almost 40 minutes without editing. My voice is probably going to be just a tiny bit less, but we're going to listen to this entirely, and I'm going to wrap up this video. We're going to do 117, which is how you're going to listen to it, as well as we're not going to even do the click track because you don't want that clicking in your ear. And this is how it's going to be when my dad records in the next video. So let's listen to this and we'll wrap up this video. And of course, that these abrupt endings and whatnot will be fixed with a fade. That's pretty much it for this video. I know I talked a lot in this video, but basically that is the final part of this thing. It's a rough edit and rough mix, and you can probably hear that a lot of things are very uneven and whatnot. But when I record my dad's voice and everything, I'm going to mix everything properly and makes things louder or quieter depending on certain things of his voice and whatnot. My plan is that we're going to record my dad's voice. I'm going to talk about the setup and how I did everything with inside the closet and whatnot. So that's the next video, and I'm very excited to finally record my dad's voice, because this has been, I think, about maybe 2 to 3 weeks in the making, because I've been dealing with other things. I've been trying to deal with a lot of school things and trying to work on other projects with other classes. So I've been nitpicking and just picking ever so slightly, and finally I just bit the bullet and tried to knock this out completely. And that's what I'm doing in the next video, is when I'm going to record my dad, because I really want to knock this out, get it submitted, and then I can worry about everything else, and it's just one less thing I have to worry about, and I can focus on my other projects and what else I have to do. So in the next video, we're going to record my dad, and I'm really excited, and you finally get to listen to his voice from not when he was younger, when he's older. And my plan is to record him, and we're going to do 3 comps, and then out of 3 we're going to pick each phrase that is the best, and that is tomorrow, of course, and recording him. So until next time, this is the Techman signing off. See you later.